Welcome back. In this video, we'll get a quick preview of what JPA is and what are the different things that are related to JPA that we would be learning during this course. Before we talk about JPA, let's talk about JDBC. JDBC or Spring JDBC, these were the approaches which were present before JPA. In these approaches, what we were doing is we were writing a lot of queries. So we write queries whenever we need to do any operation on the database. So if I want to insert a new person in, what I would need to do is I would need to create a query and I would need to populate the right values into the query and fire it into the database. So whoever is writing the Java code should also know SQL. That's how to write your queries. The queries which we are looking at right now are quite simple. I've worked in applications where these queries run into hundreds and hundreds of lines. Over a period of time, applications which were developed with JDBC and Spring JDBC become very difficult to maintain. That's where JPA comes in. JPA stands for Java Persistence API. JPA says, Java programmer, you don't need to worry about queries. All that you need to tell me is what are your Java classes, what are your Java objects that you are creating, and how do they map to your tables. JPA says, tell me all about your objects and also tell me about how they would map to the tables in the database. With JPA, all that you need to do is to tell JPA that these are my objects and these are the tables they map to. Once you do that, JPA would take care of creating the queries for you. If you look at this example which was written using JPA, you don't see a query present at all. So to find a person, to update a person, or to insert a person, we don't really need to write a query at all. With JPA, attention shifts towards defining your Java objects and defining the relationship of these objects with your tables in the database. This is called defining your entities and mapping your fields to the column in the database. The other important things that you would define with JPA are the relationships between the objects. The objects which we would store to the database are called entities. For example, we put an @entity annotation over this course object. What would happen is now this is an entity. This is something which would be stored down to the database. There would be relationships between these entities. Let's take a very simple domain, right? So there are a lot of courses and there are a lot of students. A course can have multiple students and students enroll to multiple courses. In addition, students also can leave reviews over these courses. Something like a passport is used to uniquely identify a student. So in this domain, you can see that between the different entities which are present, there are relationships. Consider the relationship between course and student. A course can have multiple students and a student can be belonging to multiple courses. This is called a many-to-many relationship. Consider the relationship between a student and a passport. A student can have one passport and one passport can only be associated with one student. This is a one-to-one relationship. And let's consider the relationship between a course and a review. A course can have multiple reviews, but a single review is always associated with one course. This is a many-to-one relationship. So in JPA, what we define is A entities. After that, we also define the relationships between the entities. You can see here in the course entity, we are defining a one-to-many relationship with reviews. A course can have many reviews, and a course can have many students as well, and the relationship of course with student is many to many. We will understand the details of all the annotations and the options that are present later in the course when we talk about relationships. JPA also provides different ways of querying the data from the database. By default with JPA, you don't need to write any queries at all. But in certain situations, you might want to write a few queries. And in those situations, there are three different options that are present. One is called JPQL. In JPQL, we write queries using entities. Here, the course is referring to the entity course, to the Java object course. It is not referring to the table course. So in JPQL, we write queries using the Java entities. The other option is to not use SQL at all. You can use something called criteria query to build the entire query using Java API. This is called criteria queries. The last option JPA provides is to use your native queries directly, is to use your SQL directly. In this quick video, we got a quick overview of the important concepts in JPA. We talked about entities, we talked about defining relationships, and we talked about the different query methodologies. JPQL, criteria query, and also native queries. All the code you have seen is what we would be developing step by step during this course. If you are new to JPA, this might be a lot of information bombardment. There might be a lot of new terminologies you have heard for the first time. Don't worry about them at all. We would introduce all these to you one step at a time. Welcome to the world of JPA. I hope you have a great time learning JPA in this course. Until the next step, bye bye.